came together in climate change, and I thought it a fascinating subject. I decided to write a book about it. I wanted to know why so many people believed in the IPCC narrative, why they were willing to spend thousands of billions on an unproven theory, destructing their own environment at the same time.
This is Climate Debrief, brought to you by the CO2 Coalition. I'm Angela Wheeler. In a moment, we'll hear from CO2 Coalition member Dr. Jules de Waart, a highly respected geologist who, in 1971, rewrote 60 million years of French landscape history using rock weathering as a climate clock, the first ever to do so. Dr. de Waart has recently written the book Crisis or Hoax: Climate Change in Science, Media, and Politics. Dr. Jules de Waart, thank you for sharing your expertise on Climate Debrief. Dr. de Waart, I'll be discussing with you an article you wrote, Consensus, Likelihood, and Confidence, with points from your recent book. Your article opens with a provocative question. Is scientific confidence in climate change greater than 99% or less than 1%? What inspired you to frame the debate this way, and how did your research for Crisis or Hoax lead you to this perspective?
Yes, and let's start with it. All scientists, of course, agree that the Earth's climate is changing over time. But the question is when, how much, and what were the causes? Are natural causes still the most important, as they have always been in the past? Have humans since 1950 assumed a dominant role, as stated in AR5? Or is current warming entirely attributable to human emissions of greenhouse gases, as the IPCC stated recently? In my book, Crisis or Hoax, I seriously doubted especially the last statement. Based on critical reading of the results of surveys of important alarmist authors as John Cook and Mark Linus, I concluded that the scientific consensus on the dominant human cause of global warming was not higher than 97% or higher than 99%, but less than 1%. And yes, that is provocative, but I also think that is very important and relevant. Let's go back a few years. A little bit more than 10 years ago, in August 2013, Legates, Briggs, Soon, and Moulton, for well known skeptic scientists, published an article online called Climate Consensus and Misinformation. And virtually everything I wrote in my book was already in that article by these four men. The Legates publication was a reaction to a widely cited article by Cook and his colleagues called Quantifying the Consensus on Anthropogenic Global Warming in the Scientific Literature, also from 2013. Cook's article endorsed a 97% of anthropogenic global warming. It was highly regarded as a thorough assessment of peer-reviewed literature and was highly praised. But how many people had actually read it? Legates did, but after examining the raw data, found that only 65 out of 12,000 endorsed the dominant human cause of global warming. And Legates assumed, I think correctly, that Cook's anthropogenic global warming referred to the increasingly definite statements by the IPCC that human influence is a dominant driver. And Legates stated in his own words, it's mind-boggling that any journal can publish an article that notes a 97% consensus on climate change, when from the author's own figures it was concluded that the true consensus is below 1%. But while Cook became world famous, the article of Lee Gates fell into oblivion, and Lee Gates himself lost his job as a state climatologist of Delaware. Why was I so interested in this discussion? Now, I studied physical geography, climatology, geology. After my retirement, I did some philosophy of science, and I learned about science, pseudoscience, cargo cult science, misinformation, all those things. And I also rediscovered then geology and climatology after a few years. It all came together in climate change, and I thought it a fascinating subject. I decided to write a book about it. I wanted to know why so many people believed in the IPCC narrative, why they were willing to spend thousands of billions on an unproven theory, destructing their own environment at the same time. And what did the science really say? Consensus, falsification, misinformation got a central place in my thinking and a central place in my new book, Climate or Hoax.
It's fascinating how you recalculated Cook's categories and found only 0.6% of abstracts explicitly endorsing the IPCC's dominant cause position. For listeners unfamiliar with abstract analysis, could you walk us through your method for verifying those 65 papers in Category 1 and how AI helped streamline the process?
Well, let's go back to the process. In March 2012, John Cook and a small team researched the web of science using the search terms global warming and global warming change. The period examined was from 1991 to 2011, and the search yielded about 12,000 articles with abstracts. Cook analyzed the abstracts and classified them into 7 levels of endorsement of anthropogenic global warming, and he called his 7 levels categories. And Category 1, this is explicit endorsement with quantification. That is like humans are the primary cause of recent global warming. This is the scientific position as defined by the IPCC since 2001 and 2007. Category 2, explicit endorsement without quantification, like humans are causing global warming. Category 3, implicit endorsement. Humans are causing global warming, but we don't say so. Category 4, no position, was uncertain. 5, 6, and 7 were implicit or explicit rejection of human influence. In his paper, Cook did not publish the relevant results of his survey. But what were the results for Category 1, 2, and 3? They were not given in his paper, were often pressed to the point by the scientific community, Cook published his underlying raw data, and it was a long list of 12,000 papers. Lee Gates went through the list and counted 65 hits for Category 1, roughly 1,000 for Category 2, roughly 3,000 for Category 3, and more than 8,000 for Category 4. Category 5, 6, and 7 had very few hits. I did the same and found the same conclusions. It was very time-consuming. Now, AI can help you with it, but you must always realize that AI may be biased towards alarmistic views. You have to repeat and reframe your question several times, but if you do, in a few minutes you will have the good answer, I think. It must have been very disappointed for Cook, the results. His study clearly falsified a consensus in the scientific literature. The consensus was 65 out of 12,000. Not 97%, but less than 1%. Only 0.6% of the scientific literature supports the IPCC position. What to do? In his conclusions, Cook combined the categories 1 and 2 and 3 and came up with a total of 3,000 endorsements for global warming. He disregarded the more than 8,000 hits of category 4 and said that 97% of all abstracts supported the theory of human-caused climate warming. He also suggested that this was in line with the scientific position of AR4. It was very biased. Only category 1, humans are the primary cause of global warming, endorsed the position taken by the IPCC. Category 2 and 3 are very broadly defined and only accepted by many skeptical scientists. Combining the three borders on misinformation and leaving out more than 8,000 answers of a total of 12,000 is also a bit controversial. So the 97% consensus that Cook found was a consensus with an unquantified human cause. And that is an open door. Everyone knows that. The much more relevant consensus with a primary human cause was only less than 1%. Cook tried to hide this by combining the categories 1, 2 and 3. Actually, I succeeded. But it's incomprehensible for me that Cook got away with that so easily. How many people would have seriously read his article, and how many had read his article and decided that it was better not to react?
What do these two studies taken together reveal about the evolution or lack thereof and how consensus is quantified over time?
Of course, after 2013, the battle for consensus went on. But by far, the most influential paper on consensus was by the staunch alarmist Mark Lynas. Lynas made it perfectly clear that his paper was an update of Cook's article, and now for the period 2012-2020. He used the same methods and came roughly to the same conclusions. Unlike Cook, he is very open about the results he found. All results are clearly represented in the article itself. This makes it even more clear that his findings do not support the consensus between the peer-reviewed literature and the IPCC dominant cause position. Lynas does not seem to realize this. In the Lynas publication, the number of abstracts endorsing category 1, humans are the dominant cause of global warming, was only 19 out of 3,000. It's open, clear in this article. Again, 0.6%, just as Cook found in 2013. So less than 1% of the abstracts supported the dominant role of humans in causing climate change, and there is no overlap, although Lynas seems to suggest it, between the results of this survey and the words of the IPCC. The relevant words here are: it is extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of the observed warming since the mid-20th century. I can find nothing like this in these results. Comparing the two main consensus studies reveals that over the last 30 years there has been virtually no evolution in the consensus. Results from both surveys shows less than 1% consensus between the abstracts of scientific papers and the IPCC position.
Please join us next week for part 2 of Angela's discussion with Dr. de Waart. Thank you for watching. The Climate Debrief podcast is funded by listeners like you. If you enjoyed listening to this episode of Climate Debrief, please like, comment, and subscribe. We read all of your feedback. If you are interested in finding out more about the CO2 Coalition and its mission, visit our website at co2coalition.org. Our host and executive producer is Angela Wheeler. Production by Ethan Audie and Scott Wheeler. Technical production and editing by Joseph von Spakovsky.